Welcome to Wynwood Magazine podcast. We're excited and thrilled to be launching our first episode of the creative minds that shape Miami. Born from a city of vibrant art and cultural scene, Wynwood Magazine distributes 40,000 copies during VIP events through Miami. Art Basel, Miami Art Week, South Beach Wine and Food Festival, name a few. We hope you pick up the next Wynwood Magazine at your favorite VIP event happening in Miami. Our mission is to showcase the brilliant writers, artists, and creative visionaries that define our city through art, architecture, fashion, food, and design. I'm Susana Baker, and I'm your host. I am also the publisher and editor of Wynwood Magazine, and we'll be bringing to you weekly wonderful stories behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, from artists spray painting to really the people that built this city and define Miami as the electric magic city that it is. And for my first guest is a renowned, world-renowned, I should say, architect Kobi Karp. So let's go and meet Kobi Karp. Welcome to Wynwood Magazine, as we feature brilliant writers, artists, and creative visionaries. And with me today is amazing, talented, award-winning architect Kobi Karp. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. As long as I'm your friend, that's all that matters.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. Well, you're definitely the friend of Miami and Miami Beach. You're iconic to the skylines and reshaping the Miami being modern, but also taking credit with the architectural Art Deco legacy. And I wanted to ask you, when was the first time that you decided you were going to go into architecture?
Thank you very much for having me, number one. It's a pleasure to be here with my dear friend for the past few decades. Yeah. But architecture sort of evolutionized. And so what happened is I was good at sketching, I was good at drawing. And as things progressed, I was able to work in construction and understand how buildings come together. And three-dimensionally, it enlightened me, it gave me inspiration. So I moved from junior high and high school into college and study it, and I really evolutionized into that.
So how does a young kid in mid-20s come to a city that has still a bad reputation? It's starting to take off a little bit with Tony Goldman on Ocean Drive and just a little bit here and there, but still many people do not want to visit. It's not known as South Beach or SoBe. How do you get and break into the Miami market?
So I came here in 1988. And it was a bit of a Miami Vice and Scarface days. But what is interesting is that a city is always in evolution. It's either going up or it's going down. And when I was coming here to Miami, it was in a point of influx. And the inspiration of the historic district and the inspiration of the tropical environment allowed somebody like me to be inspired and be creative in creating buildings and indoor spaces and outdoor spaces, which then allow for better design, but most important, allowed for a better opportunity for the people who inhabit the buildings to have a better environment, psychologically, socially. They felt better in the spaces.
So you were excited, you saw that there was going to be a resurgence, you could feel it in the air. What was the turning point in your career?
The turning point really came about when we started to do preservation and restoration of buildings like Seacoast Towers at 5151 Collins Avenue with Morris Lapidus. Or we did restoration and preservation of the Astor Hotel on Washington and 10th Street across from the museum of, basically the Wolfsonian Museum. And so those kind of destinations give you a thought process of what was there before and what can be forthcoming if treated properly.
You must have also laid down the groundwork for many other architects later on coming into the historic preservation areas of Miami Beach, because you were one of the first, really, that took on a lot of these projects when no one saw that vision, really. You know, back then, all these little hotels on Ocean Drive were decaying. They were all pebble stones with diagonal parking with a bunch of ACLFs, you know. And then you come along and you start your first project, which I'm a little bit part of that, I think, right? Do you remember the first project we did?
Absolutely.
Which one was it?
It's the one down Washington Avenue where you had your real estate
South
office,
Beach Realty.
South Beach Realty, which was on Washington Avenue in that beautiful deco building with the curved edges and the round windows. That was gorgeous, stunningly beautiful. Yeah. But you know, I think that
you did Oceanside Promenade.
We did Oceanside Promenade.
That was the first project on Ocean Drive.
Correct.
That was the very first. After that, then they came down like dominoes.
And what happened is it starts to create this ambiance and atmosphere for people can come and hang out, especially young people, because the young peoples will create the vibe and the atmosphere.
Absolutely.
And we were lucky to be, I think, at the right place at the right time, at the right age group, from different locations and different destinations. And it was like a stage set. It's like a movie. Yeah. And in many ways, life is like a movie. And it's very theatrical in that sense.
It's a circle. Here we are again, right? 4 decades almost.
With a digital camera.
With a digital
instead of a 35 millimeter.
We were with Polaroids back then.
Exactly.
But I have to tell you, you know, it had to be challenging work, because that Preservation League back in the 1980s, 1990s, they didn't know what was coming. You know, they were coming from Barbara Kapperman. You don't touch the doorknob, you don't touch anything, you keep it as it is. And you had a lot of challenges, a lot of wars to fight to get those permits, to go forward and to build. And so I wanted to ask you, you know, you have that legacy, iconic, what you did to the revitalization and resurgence of the Art Deco structures. Now, balancing that Art Deco legacy with the designs of the forward thinking, how do you balance that with Miami's forward design developments?
I think that buildings, in order to be recycled or rejuvenated or reused, have to have new, updated, contemporary use function to them. So the buildings that we looked at, even the Astor Hotel, what we did is we rejuvenated that building with an outdoor glass baby grand piano shape that allowed light and air to come to the basement. The basement was where the food and beverage was. And so we connected the historic lobby with the basement, with a crystalline volume adjacent to it.
That was so beautiful.
And that allowed the function of the food and the beverage to open up. And that's why many times on Sundays you would have the lady come and do the soul singer, what was her name? And she would
Mary Lil?
Yes.
Yeah.
She would sing and she would do a whole show for the brunches on champagne brunches on Sunday mornings and Sunday lunchtime. And what happened is that kind of brought the life and the vibe back
absolutely
into the building and back into the community that did not exist before.
So the icon of Miami Beach that brought a lot of integrity back to these structures, expanded some of its modern thinking into the Art Deco structures, now goes west over the bridge and comes into one of my favorite places, once again our world aligns, Wynwood. And Wynwood was a place that, you know, was forgotten. It was a forgotten, dilapidated neighborhood that no one really looked at. And our friend, the developer Tony Goldman, comes in and buys 18 blocks. You come now and you build one of the first luxurious, and once again, an iconic thing that's happening in an area that everything was one-story warehouses. You come and you design Win 25, and you introduce eco-friendly sustainability into these projects. How do you do that with such a challenging area like Miami with its climate and environmental?
Look, it's interesting that you bring that up, because Wynwood 25 was the first multifamily residential mixed use that we brought to Wynwood. And back then, Wynwood was more industrial and more warehousey than it was anything else. Today, it obviously has turned a corner, but when you and I first came in Wynwood 25, what we did there is create penetrations in the block. The blocks were industrial blocks, so they were quite long, and you would have to walk all the way around the block to get from one side to the next, because the property is private. But what we did is we introduced the paseos and the passages through the blocks and allowed pedestrian and vehicular movement to penetrate the site. And that's how we also have the drop-off for the residences versus the entries to the restaurants and the food and beverage at the ground level. And it's also how we brought the vehicles in and took them off the street, and were able to slope down to the basement garage or slope up to the mezzanine garage. That allowed for a quality of lifestyle in Wynwood that people who wanted to live in the area and didn't know if they wanted to live in the area could look at it and say, you know what, I can live in Wynwood. Because it's centrally located. It's a community, it's a district that connects, if you will.
Absolutely.
It connects the design district with Midtown Miami. It connects Overtown with the hospital district. It connects Edgewater with downtown Miami with the Omni district. So Wynwood, in where it sits, is like the neck, if you will, that connects the body with the head.
Absolutely.
And that became very relevant. And yes, Tony Goldman was one of the prelude thought process to this community.
Right. But he passes on in 2013. And Jessica Goldman, who's now running the operation, continues with her wonderful curations of the murals and the arts, which caused the buzz to happen in Wynwood, right? And then brings the development, the hipsters, everybody comes to the cafes like we did in South Beach. Here it happens in Wynwood. But you stamped the area with something that no one thought can happen, would see happening. At first, they're fighting against it. What happens when you work with a client and you have a vision for the project and they have another one? How do you balance that out with your differences?
Look, I think it has to do with logic. If you can present the thought process that is logical, that's truthful, that's honest, then people say, yeah, that makes sense, and they go into that direction. Because on taste and on smell, that's individual. Various people have, different thoughts. But when it comes to the way the parts of the site or the building should be designed in the most eloquent way, you need to carry a thought process like we just discussed, or the Moxie next door. The Moxie, to make a hotel lobby which is elevated with a food and beverage and leave the ground level for the community, for the public to access, whether it's for Sparrow or it's for other uses, it creates a fabric that people can then say, oh, I can be part of this building. They can come in and out. And so we did that on Wynwood 25. We did it even in the office component.
That was my next, the Gateway.
Yes, in the Gateway we did the same.
And that's a tall. I mean, that is, I'm surprised. I mean, you pull those permits, you're known to really raise the bar, because that is a monumental building.
So that building sits on North Miami Avenue and 29th Street as a complement to a building we did 10 years before that, which is the residences in the Synergy building, which also has if you will, the residences, loft residences, sitting on top of commercial restaurant retail. And that allows for the community for the public, for the neighbors. To engage, to walk in and, oh, let me have a cafecito. Oh, let me order a pizza. Oh, let me go exercise in the gym. And that creates an opportunity to give the community back the public space of the.
And the ceilings must be pretty high because there is a rock climbing gym on the first floor. And I was like, "Ooh, that's really interesting."
And people like you see it and they go, wow, this is interesting and this is how I can engage. And then it also creates a DNA and inspiration for other projects coming down the line to look at and reflect in a different form and fashion.
So you just got up for a moment and excused yourself because you were cutting a birthday cake with your wife Nancy, which is her birthday. Happy birthday, Nancy. You have your children work with you here. You have your wife. This is a family business. I want to show my not readers, because we are Wynwood Magazine, but our readers. You did a beautiful piece, by the way. Art of Architecture was written and curated by Kobi Karp. You launched with us the very first issue of Wynwood Magazine at Art Basel, and we got rave reviews. Thank you for that, because you were part of an amazing roster of brilliant writers. And so it was super exciting, and we want you again back for another issue to write and to continue. But what I wanted to show the readers and the followers of Wynwood Magazine podcast was your home away from home. Because one of the questions is, founding Kobi Karp Architecture and Design allowed you, what kind of creative freedom did it allow you, and the new goals that it helped you create by founding and opening up the doors here?
I think that here in Wynwood specifically, it creates an opportunity for us to create a campus. So when you come here and you can see the artwork on the exterior walls of not only our buildings, but surrounding buildings. And also we were able to create indoor and outdoor spaces that engage the tropical environment outside. So people can play basketball outside, padel. We can have assembly area. Barry's boot camp came in here during COVID. We can hold events here, because really what you want to do is you want to have a good quality of life where you work and where you live on an ongoing basis. Because if you are at home, it's fine, but if you are working or socializing, you should be in an environment that lends itself to be part of the design community. And so what we did here is we created indoor and outdoor spaces that are oriented about the DNA of what Wynwood is about. And so when we came here originally, everybody said, oh, you know, this neighborhood is a little dangerous at night, people blah, blah, blah. So you should put floodlights on the streets and light the streets. I said, well, instead of lighting the street, let me light the building. Because if you light the building and the murals, then people go, wow, and they feel more welcome and they feel psychologically more engaged with the buildings. Whereby if you just shine on the asphalt, on the black asphalt or the sidewalks and the concrete, people feel like, oh, it's just another urban street. By lighting up the building, whether it's the Washington Monument, Eiffel Tower, or whatever monument it is that you have in any glorious city, Acropolis sitting on top of Athens, if you light up the building, it lights up the community and the environment. It makes you psychologically feel much safer.
It definitely does. And when you're traveling down, coming from the south to the north on I-95, there is the pink lit building Kobi Karp. And with the Intronisky Goski murals all around it, and nachos, and I mean, just amazing. So why don't we go show our followers your home away from home? Yeah, let's go. So lead us into your home away from home.
So what happens here, Susana, is that we have an opportunity, if you will, to have an area to work together. That's our kitchen, and we can chill out outside. We can play paddle, bring your baby to work. See, this baby is very lucky. You know why? Why? She looks like the mommy, not like the daddy. And then you can come here, you can exercise. We have beautiful murals on the wall, protected from the rain and the sun. We can ride your scooter, your electric scooter, and charge it here.
Nice. So you must have yoga events, step classes.
Everything.
That's great. And this is for the community?
And it's open to the public and also for the guys who work here. So when you work here, you can come in and out.
And work out. So that's one of the perks you give.
Bring your lunch, whatever.
Yeah, well, that's a heck of a perk for an architect and a designer.
Yeah. We have jellyfish on the walls, and that sort of gives you a mood and inspiration that is completely different than the room we were at before.
Right.
That psychologically and emotionally gives you a vibe to look at design like you're underwater. Yeah. So that gives you a different feeling. So then what happens is that we make sample models and mock-up models of all our projects. This is the Raleigh Hotel, and we look at the detail of it. Chateau in Sunny Isles Beach, homes that we are doing. But most important, if you look at this, how it comes together, it's a place where we can just chill out and hang out. So here, this is a wind tunnel model.
This is a what? What's the name of this?
Wind tunnels. So what we do is we have to pressure test buildings for the winds, for the hurricane, to test the glass, to test the roofs. So these buildings were made to test the wind tunnel, and we connected to a pressure testing on the computer to take the loads on the building.
Wow.
So we can see how much energy is being spent on it. And these are the companies that they do the wind tunnel models. That's why they have little holes on them you see on the roof, so they can see the pressures.
That's incredible. I'm telling you.
Then, of course, this is called a jean room because we have jeans on the wall.
Look at this.
Yes.
I think I see a pair of my jeans up there.
Exactly. You see, we were down there, but you can see visually through the spaces.
Yeah.
Up and down and around.
In the designing process now with AI, how do you incorporate that?
It's interactive. You know, what happens is that people come up with ideas and suggestions and a mood and a feeling every day. And so AI is like computers. Today we can produce so much more than when I used to draw by hand.
Yeah.
That it's so much more complementary and sequential to move forward. So we can do more work, more creative in a faster way.
From that young boy that came into South Beach Realty, now look at you.
I still gotta lose a couple pounds extra. I still gotta lose pounds.
No, you look amazing. Babies, look at her. She looks like mama.
Thank God.
What would you tell yourself, the young Kobi Karp? What advice would you give young Kobi Karp, architect, if we could go back and transport you into 1989?
Don't work 9 to 5, work 5 to 9. Meet everybody, talk to everybody, take any opportunity and a chance you have. Life is a dream, enjoy it every second. You know, that's what I like about Florida and the tropics. We have so much sun. We can work from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. and have a great quality of life. Go jump in the beach or the bay and just have a very good, healthy life.
Well, Kobi, always a pleasure.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
Uh-oh, somebody's making the babies cry. Who's making the babies cry? Oh my God.